The transport ship descended through violet clouds, carrying Marcus Webb toward a planet he'd never heard of until 3 days ago. He pressed his palm against the viewport, watching the crystalline spires of Valora City rise from the surface like frozen lightning. The job posting had been simple. Contract work, good pay, no questions asked. What it hadn't mentioned was the desperation. She was waiting at the landing platform. Marcus recognized her immediately from the holographic interview. Lyria stood apart from the crowd, her azure skin catching the double sun's light, her forearms clasped together in what he'd learned was a gesture of formal greeting among her people. She wore traditional mourning whites, the fabric shifting with her nervous breathing. Mr. Webb. Her voice carried the musical quality common to Valorians, each syllable flowing into the next. Thank you for coming. I know this must seem strange. Strange didn't begin to cover it. Marcus descended the ramp, his boots clanging against metal. Around them, other travelers hurried past, but several Valorians stopped to stare. Their expressions ranged from curiosity to obvious disapproval. The payment cleared, Marcus said, adjusting the collar of his jacket. That's what matters. Lyria's golden eyes dimmed slightly, a sign he'd learned indicated disappointment. Of course. Business first. Please follow me. We have much to discuss and very little time. Her dwelling occupied the 7th tier of a residential tower, the walls embedded with bioluminescent organisms that pulsed with soft blue light. Marcus had seen wealthy homes on Earth, but this was different. Everything curved and flowed, organic rather than constructed. Through the transparent ceiling, the larger of Valora's 2 moons hung like a pearl. 72 hours, Lyria said, pouring him something that resembled tea but smelled of cinnamon and electricity. That's what the inheritance concord allows. My husband died 9 days ago. If I don't remarry within 12 days of his death, everything passes to his family's clan. They will cast me out. Marcus accepted the cup, the warmth pleasant against his palms. On Earth, we'd call that barbaric. On Valora, we call it tradition. Lyria settled onto a cushioned platform, her posture rigid despite the soft surface. My husband and I had no offspring. By law, I have no claim to our home, our assets, or even my own research. Unless I secure a new bond partner before the deadline. And you chose a human. Marcus sipped the drink. It tasted better than it smelled. Why? Lyria's 4 hands moved in complex patterns as she spoke, a nervous habit. Because your species doesn't follow our customs. Because a marriage of convenience means something different to you. Because you were willing to accept payment for something my own people would demand emotion for. Honest, at least. Marcus appreciated that. Walk me through it. What exactly am I signing up for? The ceremony would take place in 2 days, Lyria explained. A simple bonding ritual before a Concord official, witnessed by representatives from both families. Once complete, Marcus would legally become her spouse under Valorian law. He would stay for 1 standard year, maintaining the appearance of a legitimate union. After that, they could dissolve the marriage quietly, and Lyria would retain her home and her work. And the payment? Marcus asked. Half now, half upon completion of the year. Lyria pulled up a holographic display showing the account transfer. The number made Marcus's breath catch. It was enough to buy a small station back in human space, enough to retire before 40. Plus living expenses, of course. This home is large enough for privacy. You would have your own quarters. Marcus studied her face, looking for deception. He'd been a freight hauler for 8 years, bouncing between stations and scraping by on thin margins. He knew desperation when he saw it, because he'd worn it himself often enough. What did you do? He asked. Your research, I mean. Lyria brightened, her skin's azure deepening to sapphire. Atmospheric conversion systems. I've developed a process that can accelerate terraforming by 60%. 3 colony worlds are waiting for my work. But if I lose everything to the clan, they'll sell my patents to the highest bidder and bury the research in corporate archives. So this isn't just about you. No. Lyria stood, moving to the window. Her reflection ghosted across the transparent surface. Thousands of settlers need breathable air. But the law doesn't care about that. It only cares about tradition and bloodlines. Marcus joined her at the window. The city sprawled below, millions of lives interconnected in ways he couldn't fully comprehend. You said you'd warm my bed. Lyria's skin flushed darker, embarrassment coloring her features. The posting. Yes, I apologize for the phrasing. I was trying to appeal to human sensibilities, but I may have misunderstood your cultural contexts. I meant only that I would ensure your comfort, provide meals, maintain the household. Nothing more is expected or required. Good. Marcus turned from the window. Because I'm not that kind of mercenary. Relief washed across her features. Then you'll do it? One condition. Marcus held up a finger. You teach me about your atmospheric systems. I've been hauling cargo for years without understanding half of what I'm carrying. Time I learned something useful. For the first time since they'd met, Lyria smiled. Her teeth were slightly different from human teeth, more numerous and pearl white. I would be honored, Marcus Webb. The next 2 days passed in a blur of preparation. Lyria coached him on Valorian customs, the proper way to hold his hands during the ceremony, the words he would need to repeat. Her family arrived from the southern continent, a group of reserved individuals who regarded Marcus with barely concealed skepticism. His own family was too far away to attend, but he recorded a message for them, keeping it vague. Just a contract job, he said. Nothing to worry about. The ceremony took place in a Concord hall, the walls lined with representatives from a dozen species. The official, an insectoid being with compound eyes and clicking mandibles, conducted the ritual in formal galactic standard. Marcus repeated his vows, feeling the weight of curious stares from every direction. Lyria's late husband's family sat in the back, their expressions hostile. The clan patriarch, an elderly Valorian with silver-touched skin, watched the proceedings with obvious displeasure. When the official declared the bond complete, the patriarch rose and left without a word, his entourage following. That went well, Marcus muttered. Lyria's grip on his hand tightened. Thank you, truly. You've saved my life's work. The following months were strange, but surprisingly pleasant. Marcus settled into his quarters, a suite with a sleeping platform that adjusted to human physiology, and a workspace, where he could tinker with old engine parts he'd collected over the years. Lyria spent her days in her laboratory, a converted room filled with holographic models and chemical analysis equipment. True to her word, she taught him. Each evening, they would share a meal, and Lyria would explain her research. Marcus found himself fascinated by the complexity, the elegant solutions to problems he'd never considered. She was brilliant, and more than that, she was kind. Other humans lived on Valora, mostly traders and diplomats. Word spread quickly about the unusual marriage. Some offered congratulations. Others made assumptions that made Marcus's jaw tighten with anger. He ignored them all. 6 months in, Lyria received news that her atmospheric conversion system had been approved for use on 3 colony worlds. She celebrated quietly, preparing a special meal with foods from both their cultures. They ate together, talking late into the night about nothing and everything. I was wrong about you, Lyria said, her golden eyes reflecting the bioluminescent walls. I thought you were only here for the money. Marcus considered his response carefully. I was, at first. But somewhere along the way, this stopped feeling like a job. For me as well. Lyria's hands moved in patterns he'd learned indicated contentment. You've become a friend, Marcus Webb. Perhaps the best friend I've ever had? Friend. The word sat comfortably between them, neither demanding more nor settling for less. They had built something real from a foundation of desperation and convenience, and that seemed like its own kind of miracle. The year passed faster than Marcus expected. As the dissolution date approached, Lyria secured permanent ownership of her home and research. The clan patriarch made one final attempt to challenge the marriage's legitimacy, but the Concord official ruled in Lyria's favor. The bond had been honored in full. "You're free to go," Lyria said on what should have been his last day. They sat in her laboratory, surrounded by the fruits of her genius. "The final payment has been transferred. You've fulfilled every obligation." Marcus looked around the space that had become familiar, then at the woman who had become important. "What if I stayed a bit longer? Not as your spouse, just as someone who wants to see where this atmospheric conversion thing goes." Lyria's skin shifted through several colors before settling on a warm violet. "You would do that? I've got nowhere else to be." Marcus smiled. "Besides, you still haven't explained the tertiary filtration system. I'm not leaving until I understand it." She laughed, the sound musical and genuine. "Then I suppose you'll be here quite a while, Marcus Webb. That system is remarkably complex." "Good," Marcus said, settling back into his chair. "I've got time." Outside, Valora's twin suns set behind the crystalline spires, painting the sky in shades of gold and purr.